you are not imagining it. Some people act like they like you, and the more you succeed at being decent, the more they quietly resent you. The smile is real, the warmth is performative, and the tension you feel is the only honest part of the interaction. Quick thing before I go deeper. We are building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your subscription genuinely helps this channel reach people who actually want substance, not slogans. If this hits a nerve, tap like too, because the algorithm mostly responds to that signal. Now let us frame what is actually happening, because most explanations you hear are lazy. People will tell you it is jealousy or insecurity or that they are fake. That is not wrong, but it is not the mechanism. What you are dealing with is a social strategy that can be completely unconscious. And once you see the strategy, you stop taking it personally in the wrong way. You have felt this if you have ever walked away from a conversation thinking, they were nice, but I feel smaller. Or you notice their compliments land like a soft punch. Or they support you publicly, but you can sense they are collecting invisible receipts. This is not about someone simply disliking you. If they disliked you, they would avoid you. This is about someone needing you close while also needing you reduced. Here is what is actually happening. In social psychology, status is not just who is above who. Status is how predictable your position is to the group. When you are competent, emotionally stable, or socially fluent, you become a status problem for certain people. Not because you are attacking them, but because you are harder to place. And when someone cannot place you, they do not feel curiosity. They feel threat. Insight number 1 is this. A lot of resentment is not hatred. It is a failed attempt at assimilation. They are trying to fit you into their mental hierarchy, and you will not sit still. Think about how people treat a new coworker. At first, the group probes. They ask where you are from, what you do, how you think. That is not small talk, that is calibration. It is a social algorithm trying to label you so the group can relax. If you give them an easy label, like funny but not ambitious, or smart but awkward, or nice but naive, the tension drops. Because now you are predictable. The problem starts when you do not provide a stable label. You are warm but not a pushover. You are competent but not arrogant. And you are attractive but not needy. You speak clearly, but you do not dominate. In other words, you do not trade one virtue for another. You carry multiple forms of value at once. Now here is where it gets interesting. When you carry multiple forms of value, people cannot use the usual exchange rates. Most social groups run on hidden trade-offs. If someone is high status, they are allowed to be a little cold. If someone is kind, they are allowed to be a little weak. If someone is beautiful, they are allowed to be a little shallow. Those stereotypes are not just prejudice, they are stabilizers. They keep the social economy simple. When you break the trade-off, you create an accounting error in other people's minds. They do not just think, I like them. They think, wait, where do I stand relative to them? And if they are insecure about their position, that uncertainty turns into resentment. So they do something clever. They keep you close with friendliness, and they shrink you with subtle contempt. That is why it feels confusing. It is not one emotion. It is 2 competing goals. Let me show you what I mean. Notice how some people will praise you, but they will over-specify the praise in a way that limits you. You are so good at that one thing. Or they will praise your effort instead of your ability when ability is what you displayed. Or they will praise you for being humble when you did not even talk about yourself. That is not random wording. That is boundary setting disguised as admiration. They are defining you into a safe shape. And if you accept that definition, you become easier to control. If you resist it, they have their justification to resent you. They think they are better than everyone. Microhook for you. In a second, I will explain why the nicest people can be the most dangerous in this dynamic, because their resentment is masked even from themselves. But first, insight number 2. People pretend to like you while resenting you when they need access to your benefits, but they cannot tolerate the identity implication of respecting you. This is a mouthful, but it matters. In most adult relationships, liking is not the main currency. Access is. Access to information, connections, opportunities, emotional labor, social safety, entertainment, or even your calm nervous system. Some people are drawn to you because you regulate the room. When you walk in, the chaos drops. You ask clear questions. You do not escalate drama. You do not need constant validation. That is an asset. Your presence is a stabilizer. But here is the psychological cost for them. If they fully respect the stabilizer, it forces them to admit they are less stable. And for many people, that admission feels like ego death. So their mind finds a workaround. They keep taking the benefit, and they generate a private story that prevents admiration. The story sounds like, they are not that special, or they just got lucky, or they are only like that because they have it easy, or the most common, they are doing it for attention. And notice the genius of that last one. If they can frame your competence or kindness as attention-seeking, they can morally resent you while still consuming what you provide. They get to feel superior while borrowing your stability. This is why you can feel used and disliked at the same time, because you are being used and disliked at the same time, not always consciously, but functionally, yes. Now, about the nicest people, here is what makes this truly interesting. Some resentment is loud and obvious, you can see it, but the hardest resentment to detect is the resentment that is fused with the person's self-image as a good person. If someone thinks of themselves as kind, mature, or spiritual, they cannot consciously allow the thought, I envy you or I resent you. It clashes with their identity. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance, the discomfort when behavior and self-concept do not match. So what does the mind do? It resolves the dissonance by rewriting reality. They become concerned about you. They offer advice you did not ask for. They worry that you are working too hard, moving too fast, being too confident. They frame their discomfort as care. It sounds like support, but it functions like a leash. You will hear phrases like, I just want to keep you grounded, or do not change, or I miss the old you. People say that when the new version of you makes them renegotiate who they are, stay with me, because the next layer explains the specific behaviors that look like friendship but are actually containment strategies. Behavior 1. Strategic agreement. They agree with you quickly, not because they support you, but because they want to end the topic before you expand. You bring an idea, they say, totally, and then they pivot. It feels like validation, but it is actually topic suppression. Behavior 2. Selective visibility. They are friendly in private, but lukewarm in public, or the reverse. That is not moodiness. That is reputation management. They are calculating where association with you benefits them and where it threatens them. Behavior. 3. Praise with a hook. Compliments that require you to stay small to keep receiving them. I love how you are not like those ambitious people. Translation. You are allowed to shine as long as you do not compete. Behavior. 4. Soft sabotage. They forget to mention you, forget to invite you, forget to pass along information. And if confronted, they have plausible deniability. The point is not to destroy you. It is to slow you down enough that they feel safe again. Now I want to make this uncomfortable for a moment because it is important. Sometimes the reason this dynamic persists is because you accept counterfeit closeness. You accept friendliness as intimacy. But friendliness is cheap. Intimacy is expensive. Intimacy requires someone to tolerate your full reality without editing you into a manageable story. Which leads to insight number 3. And this one changes how you interpret almost everything. Resentment often emerges when your existence violates someone's preferred moral math. Most people run on a hidden equation. If I suffer, I deserve compensation. If I sacrifice, I deserve specialness. If I struggle, I deserve exemption from comparison. It is not logical, but it is emotionally compelling. When you show up with a different equation, it destabilizes them. Maybe you worked hard, but you do not complain. Maybe you grew up with difficulty, but you do not perform suffering. Maybe you set boundaries without guilt. Maybe you are not bitter. To a certain mind, that feels like you are breaking the rules. They think, I paid the price. Why are you not paying the price? Or, if you can do it without self-destruction, what does that say about me? So they smile. They keep the social peace. But underneath, there is a moral accusation. You are invalidating their story by living differently. Let me give you a concrete example. 2 friends start at the same place. One friend builds a stable life gradually. The other friend lives in cycles. Chaos, repair, chaos, repair. When the stable friend stays calm and consistent, the chaotic friend does not just feel envy. They feel judged, even if nobody judged them. Why? Because consistency creates contrast. And contrast feels like criticism when you are ashamed. And shame is the engine here, not guilt. Shame. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am wrong. When someone feels shame, they search for anything that turns their internal pain into an external problem. That is when you become too much, too polished, too confident, too intense, too lucky, too something. The label will change, but the function is constant, to relocate their discomfort into you. Now flip everything I just said, because this is where people usually get it wrong. The point is not to become paranoid and assume everyone resents you. The point is to recognize that mixed signals are often mixed motives, and mixed motives are often structural, not personal. Here is the deeper layer connecting it all. Humans manage relationships the way systems manage risk. If you are an asset to someone and also a threat to their self-concept, their brain will try to hedge. A hedge is a strategy that lets you benefit from something while reducing exposure. In finance, you hedge an investment by buying protection. In relationships, you hedge a valuable person by keeping them close and keeping them small. Friendliness is the closeness. Resentment is the shrinking. Once you see it as a hedge, their behavior becomes predictable. They will increase friendliness when they fear losing access to you. They will increase resentment when you rise in visibility or autonomy. Watch that pattern, and you will feel your confusion dissolve. Now we can get practical without becoming simplistic. Because the question is, what do you do with this information without turning cold or cynical? You need a framework that does not rely on mind reading. Here is mine. I call it the 3 tests: congruence, cost, and celebration. Congruence means, do their private and public versions of you match? If they praise you privately but diminish you publicly, or they are supportive in front of you but passive-aggressive when you are absent, that is incongruence. Incongruence is where resentment hides. Cost means, do they pay anything to support you? Not money necessarily. Time, effort, social risk, emotional energy. Resentful friendliness is usually low cost. It is words, smiles, and vague encouragement. Real support has friction. They will make an introduction. They will defend you when it is inconvenient. They will tell you the truth even if it risks conflict. Celebration means Can they experience your win as a win without immediately recentering themselves? This is the cleanest test. Resentful people can tolerate your struggle because your struggle keeps the hierarchy stable. What they cannot tolerate is your clean victory. So listen closely the next time you share good news. Do they ask questions or do they change the subject? Do they add a warning? Do they bring up someone else who did it better? Do they make it about your luck? Those are not random conversational habits. Those are status repair moves. And here is the part that might sting. You cannot negotiate someone out of this dynamic by being nicer. Niceness increases access. It does not reduce resentment. Sometimes it increases it because now they feel entitled to you. What reduces resentment is not pleading for approval. It is altering the incentives. You do that by tightening access and clarifying boundaries. Notice the pattern here. You do not have to accuse them. You do not have to expose them. You simply stop feeding the hedge. If someone gets your emotional labor, your attention, your mentorship, your calming presence, but they also diminish you, you start pricing access correctly. Less availability, less over-explaining, more neutrality, more selective sharing of your wins. Not to hide, but to stop offering your success as a stress test to people who fail it. Now, I want to give you the ultimate insight, because it ties everything together and it is the part most people never articulate. People pretend to like you while resenting you when you occupy a position they need to exist, but cannot afford to honor. They need you as a stabilizer, a resource, a connection, a mirror, a benchmark, a shield. But honoring you would force a reorganization of their identity. They would have to update their internal hierarchy, admit a dependency, or confront a shame narrative. And updating identity is metabolically expensive. The brain resists it. So they do what humans have always done. They create a social fiction that allows them to keep the benefits without paying the psychological price. They act warm because warmth preserves access. They feel resentful because resentment preserves their self-story. When you understand that, you stop asking the wrong question, which is, why do they hate me? The better question is, what do they gain from keeping me close, and what do they lose if they fully respect me? Answer that, and their behavior stops being mysterious. And if you want something concrete to walk away with, here it is. The moment you sense that familiar confusion, do not ask, did I do something wrong? Ask, did my growth just create a new contrast? Because contrast is the trigger. Your improvement exposes their stagnation. Your boundaries expose their entitlement. Your calm exposes their chaos. Not because you intended it, but because reality does that. So the next week, watch for the simplest tell. When you are doing well, do they get quieter? When you are struggling, do they get more animated? That one pattern will teach you more than 1,000 conversations. If this changed how you see certain people, I would genuinely like to hear what you noticed in the comments, because the specific examples are where the psychology becomes undeniable. And remember this, because it closes the loop from the first sentence. The smile is not the lie. The lie is the story they tell themselves about why the smile is there. Your job is not to punish them for that story. Your job is to stop living inside it.